IELTS Speaking Part 3 is basically conversation between you and the examiner, where you will be marked on the basis of your fluency, your pronunciation, your vocabulary, the way you speak, the way you frame your sentences. The more you speak, the more you will be assessed. The examiner wants to know as to how much you are familiar with the language. It is possible only when you speak and speak more. On the other hand, you have to time yourself and stick to the answer. So, without wasting time, let's get started with a few samples. Values. What kinds of possessions give status to people in your country?
I'd say it depends on where you are and who you are with. If you are out in public, it's expensive things like the car you are driving, the house and property you own. If you have the latest and the most expensive model of a car, then in my country that is a sign of status, as most people can't even afford a car at all. Property, or house you own, is also a sign of high status. This shows you have money and you are someone important.
Has it always been the same, or were different possessions thought of as valuable in the past?
I'm too young to remember exactly what it was like a long time ago, but I think that jewelry, property, and house would have been important at that time too. As far as cars are concerned, I believe, at that time they hardly came to our country, but still the Zamindars owned a few. Of course jewelry is still seen as valuable today, but previously it was these things over anything else, as a lot of the modern day possessions were not available.
Advertising. Do you think advertising influences what people buy?
Yes, definitely. If there were no advertising and you went to a shop, then you would just buy what you wanted without knowing about the product. Advertising builds up a brand and people then trust a certain product because they have seen it on television or heard about it from someone else. Actually, if we see our surroundings, we have advertisements everywhere. From soap to television, we have advertisements for all. Marketing of a product influences the customer to buy the same product, to know more about its features, qualities, usage, etc. So yes, advertising influences what we buy.
Do advertisements give correct information, or do they encourage people to buy things that they may not need?
I think some do and some don't. Sometimes, it's hard to choose. There are multiple advertisements for a single product. Sometimes it is really difficult to choose the right one. At times, we tend to make a mistake by buying a product which is of no use, but since we are influenced by advertisements to such an extent that we are left with no other choice, I do think there are checks in most countries these days to make sure that adverts are giving the correct information and not lying to people. But I think it is still easy for advertisers to exaggerate or to do this without breaking the regulations.
Transport. How do most people travel long distances in your country?
I'd say that the main ways are cars, buses and trains. In fact, it depends on how you would prefer traveling and the destination as well. Some people like to commute by car and few by public transport. The buses are a bit cheaper, but I don't think that is a much comfortable way to travel. There is the option to travel by plane as well, of course, but you can't really travel that cheaply by plane within the country. So then, cars are really the best option. And of course they give you the most freedom when you are traveling.
Have the types of transport people use changed much over the last few decades?
I don't think they have really. We've had the transport I mentioned before for many decades now in my country, and it is much the same today. Of course cars have become much more popular, but on the other hand, it has given side effects like pollution and traffic congestion as well. This has probably led to some changes. Many cities have now introduced environmentally friendly forms of transport. Also, government has been trying to reduce pollution and traffic congestion and improve the quality of air by motivating people to use public transport instead of their personal vehicles. There has also been an increase in air travel, but like I said, this is quite expensive in my country, so most cannot afford it. But if I talk about daily commuter, then I believe using public transport and personal car is the most convenient transport methods.
Let us look at some of the most important tips that we need to keep in mind for the speaking test part 3. If you do very well on this part of the test and give thoughtful extended answers that are directly addressing the question, it will show that you have a high band level. Don't give short answers like in part 1. You should provide long and explained answers with 3 or 4 sentences. Don't try to overdo it. If you want to use a fancy word, make sure that you know the exact meaning of it, otherwise, that might reduce your score. Give an example to support your point. It's also okay to discuss your life experiences. Conclude with a sentence by connecting your ideas and examples to the matter of the question.